Welcome back to Vote 2024 with me, Camilla Tominey, loving that new graphic. Can you imagine how quickly things have had to change at GB News in the last few hours? So we praise the people in charge of graphics, producers, managers and everyone else. Now, joining me now is Christopher Hope, GB News' political reporter, editor.
Yes.
Oh, come on.
Don't demote me already.
I'm sorry, they've been so busy doing the graphics that they've demoted you. And Pollster Matt Goodwin, lovely to see you. Professor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matt Goodwin.
Let's get the titles right.
Gents, we'll get into this in pretty sharpish, frankly, because it's been quite the afternoon. Initial reactions to this decision, Chris, first of all.
Just wow, but I can trace back all happening. He made an offer on Harry Cole's Sun TV programme saying, what's your offer from the Tory party? The following day, that's Thursday, he said, no, that was banter. It wasn't banter. Listen back. He's saying, what he got from me, nothing happened. Yeah. Friday happens.
No deal, basically.
No deal. He campaigned in Ashfield. He went to the Ship Inn in Wandsworth, I know. He got mobbed by people. And there's young men, young people, young families wanting selfies. Sunday, he says he wants to hollow out the Tory party.
Yes.
Monday, he declares. There's a clear line of thinking happening there. And he's been saying repeatedly on air, I really regret not standing.
Yeah, he realised he made a cataclysmic error because, as I put to him in a previous interview, Matt, I basically said, this is a contradiction because on one hand you're saying Britain's going to hell in a handcart and then you're saying, but actually I'm not going to help out, I'm going to go to America. And I felt he squandered his sort of man of the people credentials by saying, well, no, I'm going to become man of Trump.
I think that initial statement was phrased very poorly, but I don't think this is about the events of the last week. This is about the events of the last 10 years. What we've seen today is the beginning of a battle for the future of British conservatism. It is a battle, in a way, for the future of the British right. And this has been coming not just since Rishi Sunak announced the election. Let me tell you, this has been coming since the rise of the UK Independence Party, since the vote for Brexit, since the Brexit Party, since the start of reform. Over and over again, millions of voters have been saying, I want lower immigration, I want secure borders, I want an economy that puts British people ahead of everybody else. And the Tories, to be blunt, over the last 14 years, haven't given people what they promised. And what they have done is they've created today. They've created Nigel Farage announcing he's now going to go hell for leather to replace the Conservative Party.
Look, I felt that this afternoon was very reminiscent of the Brexit campaign. I feel that he's trying to make a direct appeal, particularly to the Red Wall. This was about cross-generational, cross-ideological, cross-class, actually, saying, if you agree with me that Britain is broken, then come with me and I'll give you back your country, OK? Now, that's all well and good. But Chris, where does Rishi Sunak pivot to as a result of this?
Okay.
There'll be plenty of people who are like, no, I don't like Nigel Farage. I'm a righty, but no, Reform and Nigel Farage appall me. It's all about dog whistle politics. He's blaming everything on immigration and immigrants. So I don't like him. They may then fall into line with Sunak as moderate right. He can't outright Nigel Farage.
Have you seen The Blue Planet with David Attenborough?
Go on.
You know when they have these bait balls in the sea and then they get attacked from tuna and it ends up by a sort of a husk and a bit of a fish eye, and that's about all that's left. That is the Tory party right now. They're being attacked from left and right, from obviously the main opposition problem, which is Keir Starmer's Labour Party, but also the Reform Party is getting its teeth stuck in. And I'm not sure Mr Sunak knows what he's doing or where to go. And this is entirely of his own making. You have to. It's not as though he's forced into an election. He wasn't meant to have this until November.
This is all on the basis that you can only win an election from the right and not from the centre. You know, the Cameron-Osborne argument is you don't need to go full Farage. You've got to be broad church because you've got to unite two different constituencies. Tories that love Nigel Farage and Tories that hate him.
So, yeah, but I think we need to stop talking as though we're still in the 2000s and the 2010s. We're in a new politics. We are approaching what many people can feel, without being too dramatic, but they can feel this is almost a civilizational moment in the sense that they don't quite understand what it is that makes we in Britain a we anymore. They're being bombarded by mass migration. The borders are out of control. We've got sectarianism that we saw in the local elections. We have debates about radical Islam and its compatibility with British society, which no mainstream politician wants to have. We've got young Gen Z Zoomers who cannot get on the housing ladder. We've got a debate in this election which is saying nothing about what's our long-term growth strategy, how are we reviving productivity. I don't personally think Nigel Farage has the answers to all of those questions, but he is at least asking those questions, and that is why he's going to cause enormous damage. The one thing I'd add to Chris's point, which was great, there's another thing attacking the Tories: apathy. Remember 97? Many Conservatives, they didn't defect. They just stayed at home.
All right. Well, let's just move away from the big bombshell announcement and just talk generally about the campaigning picture so far.
Yes.
This MRP poll suggesting that Labour will win 422 seats. That's 194 more than Blair in 1997.
Yes.
And the Tories
then
will be reduced to 140 seats, the worst result for them since 1906. In fact, I think even worse than 1906.
Yeah. Lib Dems on 48. That's an uptick of around, trebling theirs.
Should we believe these numbers?
Reform, 0.
Yes.
Now, that might change with Farage. Farage claiming he's going to be...
This, sort of apocalypse for the Conservatives.
It's 60,000 people that they've surveyed here. It's not even the 10,000 in which we featured on Friday night on GB News. This is 60,000 people surveyed. It's a big number.
Can I just briefly say about the MRP? Yeah. We are either heading towards the political equivalent of the Titanic, the Conservatives being essentially blown off the map. Some of the viewers will remember 1997 when Anthony King, he looked at the numbers coming in and he said, this is like an asteroid hitting planet Earth and destroying everything on it. That was a new Labour landslide. That's what the Conservative Party is facing. It's either that, Camilla, or the polling industry is about to experience the biggest error in its entire history, and it might as well pack up shop and go home.
So it's going to be one of the two.
It's going to be one of the two. Now, we've had the by-elections, remember. The by-elections have shown us that these Labour swings are real and they're historic. So maybe, just maybe, we are actually going to see something truly historic here.
Well, on Labour swings, I find it astonishing, and he gave his big talk today about defence, we're going to be covering this a little bit later on, that actually Labour are now only 2 points behind the Conservatives when it comes to defence and security. It's like they're trusted more with the economy, they're trusted more with defence and security, they're trusted more with keeping taxes down.
With Brexit.
Has the world started turning in the opposite direction?
They're just trusted more. I think they're just trusted more. I think people have turned off from all the messaging coming out from the Tory party. That's a problem. Everything he's tried since he became leader hasn't worked. Essentially what happened is clever clogs MPs felt they'd given up with Boris Johnson and tried to replace him with two people. It didn't work out.
But Chris, the one thing I would come back to is it's not that Labour are leading in the polls against the Conservatives. Yes, they are. But if you look at the detail in the polling, as we've done, we've had GB News polling this week, often the person who's ahead is actually none of them, none of the above. And this takes us back to Nigel Farage, because on immigration, on Brexit, on the economy, it's not that people are saying Keir Starmer and Labour have the answers. They're often saying none of them have the answers.
Farage's answers aren't great either. Your question's on net zero. He didn't like that at all. To be fair, he's had a big weekend of Nights to the Soul.
Hang on a minute.
Nigel Farage did not have answers for you at all on net zero.
He's a great campaigner. No. We're now going to find out if he's actually got something to add to these. This rhetoric is all well and good.
He wasn't ready for the detailed questions. Let's give the guy maybe a slight break that he's worked out what he's doing in the past. But he had no answers there, and that's his problem.
He's got to work that out pretty damn quickly. Matt, just quickly, your own polling. Some interesting findings, not just on politics, actually. Just tell us about that D-Day finding. We've got this is remarkable. About D-Day.
This is remarkable. It did actually come up in the speech today that we saw with Nigel Farage. He referenced an earlier poll, but we found much the same today. Not even half of the country can actually say what D-Day refers to. There's a real ignorance out there in the country about what D-Day is all about, and I think I don't want to make this. I don't want to make this political. We're not the first people to find this. YouGov have found it as well. The one thing I would say is this is going to press that button out there in the country, that button of concern about actually what are we teaching kids? How aware of our national history are we? And actually, we talk a lot about what's wrong with Britain. We talk a lot about what's wrong with British Empire and the history and the legacy of our country. But do we actually teach kids enough about what we got right, about what we did right? And I think that's where this polling comes into play.
Matt, Chris, brilliant analysis from you two. Thank you very much.